our plan or target. So I think starting now in 2015, 2019 with the new government, this commitment is really more clear that already stipulated in the third national development plan, that is 2005, 2015, 2019. Next slide. So with that commitment, the government led by Bapenas, that is my former ministry that I work for, has worked closely with GGGI, that is Global Green Growth Institute, which established in 2011, 2012, where Indonesia is founding members. Right now, our former president, SBY, Bambang Susilo Yudhoyono, is becoming the chairman of that institute. So together with GGGI, Bapenas has already prepared a so-called roadmap for green growth initiative, that is delivering green growth for prosperous Indonesia. So basically, this roadmap has been developed and outlines opportunities, methodologies, and priority action, how that we can move toward this green growth concretely in our development. Next slide. So with that documents, we will see that growth shouldn't focus on only short-term opportunities. For growth, often we have to see really a long-term problem, issues. We can tackle that. We know that moving toward green, there always a cost short-term, but we have to see the benefit of this initiative in the long-term exercise. Many private sector are always reluctant to move on this short-term initiative because of the cost that has to be borne for moving on this initiative on green. So, what is the final outcome that we want to see while with moving on this green route? First, certainly that
of realizing the development in the ideals advanced is Kalimantan mode in 2030. I have the book about equitable and sustainable green growth. Mr. Raswati, can you help me with this book? The book. Ladies and gentlemen, the strategies and policy include three main issues, namely, first, concerning transformation in economy toward the use of the renewable natural resources. Second, concerning low emission development cooperation. Third, concerning support needed in the implementation of low emission development. Ladies and gentlemen, East Kalimantan has various less sound and qualified economic development phases. Decrease in growth rate from 7.42% in the timber period and 1970 to 5.40% in oil and gas area, and 2008 caused increase in unemployment rate to more than 10%. Furthermore, the decline in economic growth rate due to shift in economic base from oil and gas, which potential has declined to coal, had generated the highest percentage of unemployment in the economic history of East Kalimantan, namely amounted to 12.33% in 2007. Ladies and gentlemen, by extracting natural resources to drive economic growth, East Kalimantan become the third largest carbon emitting province in Indonesia after Central Kalimantan and Riau. Majority of East Kalimantan emission, steam from forest conversion and other land trees. While process and related emission are relatively small process, conversion are driven by palm oil, mining, forestry, and agriculture, and create emission via deforestation, forest degradation, fires, and the grinding of peatlands. And gentlemen, for the purpose of supporting the national government will be reduce carbon emission in 2010. The government of East Kalimantan province along with all community element declare the Green Last East Kalimantan Green County. Green East Kalimantan is a condition in East Kalimantan that.
So we have 100 villages have been trained for what we call CIMAC. It's kind of financial accounting system that in a single village in Berau, they may have a budget from government about $100,000 US. It's about 1.4 billion in a single village. In a single village who has about, let's say, 37 households in like Longduho, in a village in Berau. So you can imagine how the capacities really need to be enhanced to improve their development. So we have what we call a village model in Berau. We have Merabu and Longdohong serve as the models that we believe that by having this kind of models, we can replicate to other larger scale, to other districts, even to other provinces. Next, please. This is the example, really the example how the forest, the local governments at the village level can also participate in reducing the emission directly on the ground. You can imagine a village here, like here, a small spot in the middle of nowhere in East Kalimantan, having access to the internet. They rent internet connection, satellite, and then they do what they can do to reduce the emission. They extinguish fires, and then they post it in Facebook. For what? To inspire other villages to do the same thing on the same way as they do in Merabu. So I think it's a very good example how the capacity can be enhanced to support the development on the ground level. Next, please. Reduce impact logging. This is another sample, the second sample that we would like to highlight during this session, that we have been working with local logging concessions and trying to introduce what we call reduced impact logging carbon. Basically, this is almost similar with the real RER, the reduced impact logging, the ordinary one, but we try to introduce the carbon. I'd like to mention that probably after this, Wayudi will also talk about this in the next session, and then just after this. So I skip this one, but the point here is we already have the models here, and then need to be replicated to other larger areas to have bigger impacts. Next, please. So regarding the forest management unit, when we work with the logging concessions, we need a forest governance at the ground level. KPH, Forest Management Unit, is a program that led by district government, initiated by central government, and almost all of the forest governance on the ground led by KPH, led by Forest Management Unit. Almost everything, we can see from certification, from monitoring, forest assessment, working with community, engaging with the community. Almost everything we can do on the ground with the leadership of Forest Management Unit. So I think this is the also another example on how we can also replicate this example to larger scale.
They currently encourage more licensing and agricultural expansion than they do of increasing productivity and intensification. 40% of Central Kalimantan's GDP comes from land use, and you can see that somewhere between $700 and $950 million is collected in national government taxes from that every year, but only about 10% goes back to the region itself. So where gas and oil, for example, has generated revenues that flow back to the region, giving them incentives to actually grow their resources and sectors in a more sustainable way, but as well allowing them to benefit from the growth that's taking place. You can see that palm oil is not having anywhere near that kind of impact, certainly not in Central Kalimantan. What this also means is that the bulk of businesses are making decisions that are not linked to productivity, and local administrators are actually allocating land based on licences and also lands and building taxes, both of which encourage the use of more land, not less. If I can have the next slide, please. So why are we advocating a landscape approach? Of course, everybody's talking about landscapes and jurisdictions these days, and I think one of the unfortunate things is that it's lost a bit of its meaning. But for us, and hopefully for a large number of you, we're really talking about a comprehensive approach to the problem of land use. One thing that's really distinguished here is that before RED, I think RED is really a landscape approach now, but when we used to deal with land use issues, it was project by project, and it was very difficult to see aggregated effects or benefits delivered at scale. So one of the essential elements that we're looking at is actually connected pieces of land. What that also means is that you're dealing with ecosystems that have valuable natural assets that should be preserved or rehabilitated, and
climate context. But we also need an inclusive green economy to restart economic development, to make sure that the development is green, to provide the jobs that people need, and also, as was pointed out by last speakers, to improve the lot of the small farmer. And frankly, I think we cannot do that other than with a fairly complete economy-wide transformation that we are talking about. Now the question is, these are good ideas and they have slightly moved forward, but is there a gap between concept and implementation? And yes, there is. Of course, we would like to be like the cyclist in the Tour de France race, going straight from the start to the finish and coming first. But the reality is a little bit more like what you see in the second diagram. And the question that we have to ask is that, is this gap just destiny, or are we just going to have to face this difference, or is there something in the design of the green economy, in the design of our green growth strategy that needs to be rethought, that needs to be relooked at? And I would probably argue it's the second. Here is why. So firstly, what is the inclusive green economy? It's a set of principles around which a new economy can be designed. And some of these principles already were much talked about in Indonesia, and you are familiar with them in terms of focusing on jobs in the economy. This is taken straight out of the report that my colleagues at UNEP and I have drafted recently to present as UNEP's paper. This was presented in New York in September. We look at an economy-wide transformation because the impacts of policy changes in one area affect another. You cannot have a new energy policy without affecting transportation and without affecting agriculture, and vice versa. So we have to look at economy-wide transformation. We have to use dynamic models like the system dynamic model that my colleagues and I have been working with Kalteng and also with Bapedas there and also Bapenas. So these are the ways in which we have to approach it. And we have to look at rethinking natural resources, recognizing them, placing them right heart and center of the balance sheet of the country, which they are, and then seeing what can we best do to provide people jobs and livelihoods through these natural resources, rather than simply convert them into corporate profits. GDP, and people keep forgetting this, GDP is a combination of different incomes. It is profits, it is also wages and salaries, including the wages of workers. It is also net interest for the bankers. It's also net rentals of equipment and depreciation and so on. And somehow, we keep forgetting that it's not just profits, it's all these other factors as well. So when you want economic growth, you need to grow all the elements of GDP, and not just the profit element. And without growing all the elements, you will not get GDP growth.